Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. My name is Tate. How are we all doing today? I'm joined once again by Aaron from Aaron at the Movies. We are going to be talking about what films we've watched this month. And dear God, it's just the highest of highs and lowest of lows. But we'll get into that in a bit. How are we doing today, Aaron?
Good. I've had a knackering, stressful couple of weeks, but I'm glad to just talk about some films and just push all that to one side.
Exactly. I've had quite a stressful few weeks as well. I've got a new job, which is just crazy and hectic at the moment. It's the reason why I'm not able to go and attend the film festival this year up in London, which I'm really upset about. But I'll hopefully be able to see a lot of the films that would have been in the festival before I go out to Austria. Fingers crossed. Some of them are going to have to wait a little bit of time before then. Hopefully, I'll catch them before Oscar season. But of course, with this video, we're going to talk about the films that we've watched this month, not about the films in the future. And we would like you to comment down below with what you've watched as well. And we love to create a discussion. So talk about that in the comments and say what you've watched this month. If you have any comments on any of the films we've seen, there are some films on here which new films or even old films that we haven't really discussed on the channel. There's going to be some which we have discussed on the channel. And we're going to have to talk about it a little bit further as well. And we will go through that when we get to it. But I've seen a fair amount of films this month. I've seen a few TV shows as well. So we'd love to hear what everyone else has watched this month. And we'll go over that in a bit. I'll do the socials and following on social media and stuff and everything like that a little bit later on. I think we should just crack on straight away into it. How many films have you watched this month, Aaron?
I've watched 11 films according to Letterboxd and one TV show.
So apparently I've watched 19 films. I've had a busy month. So should we say you should go first and talk through the films that you have watched, and then I'll go after and I'll talk about the one TV show I've also watched on top of that.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So starting things off, I said this to Tate before we started going live, is that a lot of the films that you'll see in my list are ones that have already come out earlier in the year, but like I've just been playing catch up because there was a period of time where a lot of stuff was out and I just didn't get a chance to see everything. So the first film that I kind of caught up on was A Quiet Place Day One, which I absolutely loved. I feel like the Quiet Place films have got better with each film. I do like the first one, but I do kind of feel like it is the weakest and it's them testing the water with a concept. I love the second one. This one for me might be the best one of the three that we've had, because if for some reason it reminded me a lot of Spielberg's War of the Worlds, just with the way it kind of looked and felt and like the city setting and the way it played out. And I just loved a lot of aspects about it. I loved the connection between the two characters. I love the way it looked. I think it's got some incredibly tense scenes. I just loved it.
I think what they've done there is they've taken what is a pretty basic concept and it started off a bunch of other sequels and various different things like Bird Box and all the other things that came with that. But they've taken a basic concept of you can't make any sound, which is a standard horror element. And they've gone and explored it in various different ways. And like you said, the first film was testing the waters. It was getting things out there. It was a massive hit at the time. And, people can talk about, Emily Blunt and John Krasinski and all the things with that and the brilliant acting on that. But I kind of agree with you. The second film took that concept and turned it into something better. It really focused down on the characters more, focused down on less of the horror elements and more of the survival elements that came with it. And I really enjoyed that. And then with this film, it goes even further once again. I mean, the film's been out now for a while, so we can talk about it a little bit more outside of spoilers. But the main character is on death's door. Like, she is terminally ill. She will die at some point, and yet she's fighting for her life. And that's such a human thing. And that's such a great concept. And I love the chemistry between, the two characters, between Lupita Nyong'o and between Joseph Quinn. It just played out so well to that relationship, how it's developed throughout the film, and I really enjoyed Day One. I wasn't expecting to like it that much, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same. It's one of those where I was expecting to give it like a 4 stars on Letterboxd and it be somewhere like in the top 20 of my best of the year list. But at the moment, as soon as I watched it, it just kind of shot right near, not right at the top, but it's like securely in the top 10 at the moment. And I honestly,
it's on mine. It's 10th on mine, so there you go.
I think also, while we're on the topic of that, it kind of, because I know a few years ago people were saying that the original Quiet Place was originally a concept they were going to use for one of the Cloverfield spin-offs. The more this franchise plays out, it's almost like the better trajectory of what the Cloverfield films could have been. Because you had the original go for Cloverfield, which was great. You had 10 Cloverfield Lane, which tried something a bit different but still worked. Then you had Paradox, which felt like it was trying to do too much. This, again, because you said it kind of sticks to that core concept of like you just can't make sound. It feels like each one they're just perfecting that same thing, but just changing up the characters and setting each time. And I think that's possibly the best way they could do it, especially for a concept as straightforward as that.
I completely forgot that Paradox existed then for a second. It was such a blip of a film. It was the oh, by the way, we have a new film. It's completely filmed. No advertising. Here you go. It's released. It was like, wait, what? Whoa. Where did that come from? Just like, and then suddenly it's like, oh, the film is very, very mid. And then everyone forgot about it straight away.
Yeah, there will be many days, because I love the Cloverfield franchise. I love two of them. There will be many days where I'll just be minding my own business, and then my brain will just go, Paradox exists, and I'll be like, why did I just remember that?
Oh God, why is that in my mind?
I think on a side tangent, that film just annoys me the more I think about it, because like you got a great cast, you got a decent director, and it's all just anyway. No, this isn't a Cloverfield tangent.
I'll
move on. Yeah. So going straight from the great A Quiet Place Day 1 to one of this is literally the only film I watched in September that I genuinely didn't like. And it's one of the weirdest films I've seen all year. It's called Sasquatch Sunset.
I've heard of it. Has it got Jesse Eisenberg in it?
It's got the two most notable actors in it are Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough. From what's she been in? Under the Silver Lake and Mad Max Fury Road. I'll describe the premise, and then from this alone, you'll kind of see how weird it is. You got four actors playing a family of Sasquatches, Bigfoots, and that's it. There is no plot. You're just kind of observing. It's like a nature documentary. You're observing them these last remaining four Sasquatches living their lives, and they don't even talk to each other. It's just a series of grunts. There is no dialogue in the entire film. It's just them communicating through a series of grunts, and that's kind of it for about an hour and a half. No, I think it's actually an hour and 40 minutes. Like, they drag it out for longer than it really should have worked. No, it's 88 minutes.
Oh my
okay.
God. It's 88 minutes. I was going to say, I don't think anyone could take that any longer.
And this is the other thing. It's a comedy, but it relies on a specific type of, you have to be in on the joke to begin with for the jokes to work. And then once it commits to that, it pretty much just does the same thing for 88 minutes, throws in a bit of really disgusting, gross out humor as well. Like there is you can't really spoil the film like this. There's a scene where the remaining Sasquatches discover a road for the first time, and they have no idea what this thing is that they've just discovered. So they then proceed to mark their territory by peeing, pooing, and vomiting all over it, and it lasts way longer than it should do. And again, this whole time they're just grunting, and it's like a fever dream. This film.
It sounds like high end kind of Kino levels of peak cinema right there.
Yeah, you know the annoying bit as well. This it's gorgeously shot. Like the actual cinematography is like they actually kind of gave a crap and were like trying to make it look as good as possible. And the general presentation, the score as well is also lovely, but just everything is like, why the one thing I was thinking the whole time is, why does this film exist? Like, what is the purpose of it? And I
All I
guess
can
there is,
say to that is it's an original idea.
yeah, and Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough. This is the other bit. They're executive producers on the film. Like they are committed to this thing, other than being in it as well. And that's the bit that baffles me the most. I'm just like, they're in
Yeah.
on a joke that obviously the audience is not like. There's a joke that we're not being told, and they're just fully committed to it.
Do you think the joke was, let's make like the blandest, most boring, most just like completely out there film, make it seem like there's a joke, but just kind of get away with it?
Maybe. I think it might just be a case of like, the more I think about the film, which to be honest, I've only rethought about it for the sake of this video. I kind of forgot I'd watched it. The more I think about this film, the more it almost feels like they deliberately committed to this film almost as like a middle finger to either the studio. It's just like, yeah, it's like, oh, I bet you're not going to fund this weird film about 4 Sasquatches that's got incredibly gross humor in it, but we're going to make it anyway and just make it the most like. This is the thing. I can't say it's unwatchable because it looks good, it sounds good. This is where it gets a bit conflicting, but it is one of the weirdest films I've seen in a long time, and I just don't kind of get why it exists.
That's hilarious. I've immediately gone to look up. I wanted to see what the budget of it was, and they have not released what the budget to the film was, which I find
I'm not
absolutely
surprised.
hilarious. They just will not let anyone know what the budget is. I will say as well, though, it's only made 1 million. So, like, you're one of the few people in the world who have actually seen this film. It's like being part of an elite club. But
it's an elite club I don't want to be part of.
It is absolutely hilarious that they have refused to release the budget.
Yeah, this is the thing. It played at because I saw a couple of reviews out of Sundance Film Festival when it debuted, and I remember hearing decent things. And then it played at Sundance London, and almost everything I heard from it was either right down the middle or just like, what is this film? Like, what is it going for? And I just. This is the thing. I don't even know who the target audience would be. Like, I can't even even as a joke, I can't even recommend it to anyone because I'm like, you've got to sit through an hour and a half of whatever Sasquatch Sunset is. But I guess I'm glad I've watched it just so it exists.
We'll talk about a film that is one of those you just have to tick it off and just get on with it kind of films a bit later. What else have you seen this month?
So after that, this is the other thing. This was the only cinema trip of the month because the rest of it was streaming or whatever. So the next thing I watched was Beetlejuice. I've really enjoyed it. I really like the first one. It's kind of grown on me more over time. I think when I first watched the original, I watched it at an age where I was very critical of a lot of films. So I think I was way too harsh on it. But now that I can just, experience the original as like a fun film, I kind of went into the same mindset with this one. And as soon as the credits started, like, I just had a massive grin on my face. Like, it's just nostalgia overload. But I just, when I feel, and you might have the same, but like when it gets to the second half of this film and it fully starts committing to the stuff you want it to commit to, that's where I feel like it really worked for me. The stuff in the first half is good. It feels a little bit like it's trying to juggle too much at once, but when it starts to commit to the wacky visuals and the zaniness, that's when it really works for me. And the entire final act in the church,
I have had MacArthur Park stuck in my head for almost a month.
Yeah. There is
unreal.
there's the bit where it cuts to the close up of the vicar and he's like looking so confused while mouthing the song. I've had that mental image just stuck in my head, and that whole finale, I was just in hysterics. I felt like I was the only. I went to see it with my dad, who likes the original film as well, and I feel like we were the only two laughing in the screening. Everyone else like either didn't get the jokes or just wasn't.
Do you know what? I found this recently. I don't know if it's just general cinema audiences, and you know, for people at home, myself and Aaron, we go to an amount of press screenings. You go to a lot more than I do, but we go to press screenings, and usually press screenings when it's a comedy, you hear nothing but laughter, and you know, especially friends of the channel like Neil, who doesn't stop laughing during those screenings. But it's a great vibe. See, there you go straight away.
As soon as you said that, the main thing I was thinking of was, you could attest to this as well because you were there. Deadpool and Wolverine. Like, I was right next to Neil, and I think there was a couple of points where he was like cheering and then laughing so loudly that I then like shot a glance over to Charlie, and I think we both had the same expression of like, oh god, like we were laughing as well, but we were just like.
Do you know what? It's a great atmosphere. I genuinely, like the press and media screenings are great atmospheres. No matter what film you go and watch, I don't think I've ever had like a bad experience in a press screening because everyone's professional and everyone understands what's going on. Last month, obviously, I think I spoke about this on the last what we watched, but I went to go watch Deadpool and Wolverine. It was a great atmosphere. Loads of people laughing at the jokes. Everyone pissing themselves in the seat. Brilliant atmosphere. I went to go watch it with my mates, and just me and my mates were laughing, and no one else was laughing. And it's a funny film, and it's one of those where you kind of laugh, and then you just kind of look around, like, are we the only people who laughed at that joke? I think it was the joke about Hugh Jackman's divorce, and I was hysterical both times at that. That is one of the best jokes in the film, and yet you look around, and it's like everyone's just like stood there, just like I'm watching a superhero film. You can't be laughing at a superhero film, and it's guys. I know that in America it's very, very different. I know that in America you have like sways of people just bursting out laughing, hollering at the screen and whatever.
Yeah.
But you can have fun in a cinema. If it's a funny film, you can laugh. And as long as you don't talk throughout the film, as long as you're having a good time and you're not distracting people, laugh at the moments for laughter. Usually there's a pause afterwards. Well, that's sitcoms. But, you know, it's one of those things where you can't have a dead silent cinema if you're watching a comedy film. And I'm guessing that's exactly like your Beetlejuice like watching it in the cinema. The press screening, great laughter throughout. Everyone loved it. And you go and watch it in the cinema normally, and no one's laughing at the jokes. People are just watching the film as if they are literally sat at their home on their phone. And that's just not cinema. Cinema's meant to be enjoyed. Cinema's meant to be loved. So, you know, we want the reactions.
It was quite jarring because there were a couple of points where I can't remember exact lines, but I think there was one point where Catherine O'Hara came out with like an absolute zinger, and me and my dad were pissing ourselves. And then like we then just clocked halfway through laughing that like literally no one else in the screening is laughing, bar maybe one person on the other side. And I'm just like, these are genuinely funny jokes. Why is, unless, you know, with how, you know, the younger generations are, maybe style of humor's changed. I don't know. There's a lot of different factors.
I don't know. I'll put it this way. I don't think I've laughed harder at the cinema this year than the birthing scene followed by kicking the baby. There's just I genuinely don't. That joke just caught me so off guard because it's one of those things. You watch Beetlejuice 1, and Beetlejuice isn't in the film too much, so you don't get too much of the zaniness. But when he's on, and it's really funny. This film gave us more of that, and of course, people were after that. People really wanted those laugh out loud funny moments. So that scene, I was just not expecting. I expected the spill your guts. I saw it in the trailer. That was funny. But then the scene, just the line immediately afterwards. Oh my god! It caught me so off guard. I had the same reaction to Jojo Rabbit with the fuck off Hitler kicking him through the window at the end of the film. Like I still have vivid memories of watching that in the press screening, having cried like 10-15 minutes before Scarlett Johansson's death. And then just being a complete comedy outside. Yeah, no, it's great. And we love reactions like that in the cinema.
Yeah, we need more of it. I don't think I've seen many comedies this year in the cinema, but like when you do, you want that reaction to come through, not just from you, but everyone you're surrounded by, because it then becomes infectious, and you know that everyone's on the same page. And seeing it not happen with Beetlejuice, especially considering the reception towards that film's been a bit all over the place. It just kind of, I kind of left enjoying the film, but then also kind of going, that's kind of not disappointing, but it's kind of sad to see that it's not being reciprocated.
Do you think if people were laughing along with you, the experience would have been better, and maybe even the film would have been raised slightly if it's a comedy?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for the film itself, obviously, the whole thing of it trying to juggle too much is an issue nonetheless. That's still going to be there. But I do think in terms of pure enjoyment, despite the fact that I was having an absolute blast, I do think it would have actually improved it just a little bit more, because the best thing I can think of is seeing the original Deadpool on opening night, and everyone was on the same page. Everyone was pissing themselves at like 99% of the film, and everyone was loving it. Whereas this, it's like it felt like I was on my own, and I don't understand that. But when you get that one screening, whether it be a press one or a public one, and everyone is on the same page, that it's a dime a dozen nowadays. But it's bliss when it happens, and like you said, press screenings, it happens all the times.
Brilliant.
So the next film after that is the Netflix original film Rebel Ridge, directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who did Green Room. I really like Green Room. I think it kind of gets overlooked a little bit. Rebel Ridge really surprised me, because I've not seen a film of his since Green Room, and this feels like he's upped his game, not just in terms of writing, but also directing. Like, it feels a lot more. Green Room kind of relies very heavily on its punk aesthetic and its punk look and feel, and the fact that it's about a punk band. Rebel Ridge is very mature in the way it handles literally everything. Like, you think it's going to go a specific way, and then it kind of subverts that by going the mature, realistic, grounded route. But by doing that, it then builds up enough tension that when it becomes a shootout and firefight in the back end of the film, it feels like it's earned that. It's genuinely fantastic, and I was not expecting a film like this to suddenly become like a film you must watch this year.
Interesting. I genuinely hadn't heard of it until you mentioned it, but I love Green Room. So.
Yeah, it's been nice to. I think more people need to be talking about it, because I've only seen a couple of people here and there mentioning it. But for those who have seen it, they're all on the same page. They love it just as much as I do. I don't think it's a film I'd particularly rewatch that often, but in terms of the craft, in terms of the performances, especially from Don Johnson, who plays an absolute bastard in this film, everything just works. And yeah, I cannot recommend it enough. It's a completely different beast to Green Room, but it's one of the most maturest takes on like a revenge style, one person against the cops sort of thriller action film. It's a very mature take on it, and I really liked what it was trying to do.
I'm gonna have to give it a watch.
I will warn you now, it's a slow burn. Like, it takes a while to get going, but if you're on board with the performances and the writing,
I have the patience of a saint this month. I sat through Megalopolis. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The next film I watched was Twisters. Very late to the party on this one. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I've not actually seen the original.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I went straight into this one because I was like, I need to. It's one of those films everyone's talked about, and I need to tick it off before the year's over. And I just really enjoyed it. It's just a ton of fun. I don't really have much to add to that compared to what everyone else has said.
They've brought it back for 4DX. Now, there's a few films that they're doing a good 4DX season cinema at the moment, because they've brought back Top Gun Maverick, which is one of those films which that is like the one film you'd want to watch in 4DX.
Yeah.
But I just sadly I haven't had the time to go and do it. I would have absolutely booked a ticket for either of those films, because I've heard it's a wild experience either way. But
Yeah.
I feel like I want to watch Twister first before I go into Twisters.
I'm gonna be brutally honest. Like I haven't seen the original, but I know roughly what the plot is. It's tornado chases. This film can be viewed on its own thing. I'm pretty sure none of the characters in the film. I mean, there is no reference to the original in any way in terms of the events or the characters. These are completely new characters just doing the same sort of thing the original characters did. I watched it fine and I understood it, so you should be fine just going straight into Twisters and then maybe watching Twister at a later stage. But yeah, one of my biggest regrets is not seeing this in the cinema. I ended up seeing it on streaming because I was like, okay, now it's available. I finally get the opportunity to watch it. And yeah, as much as I enjoyed it, I feel like I would have enjoyed it a lot more in some cinema capacity. And that's one of my biggest regrets. But it's just because a lot of stuff came out all within the space of a couple of weeks. And I could only tick off a couple of films here and there rather than seeing everything. So yeah, that's probably my biggest regret is not seeing that in the cinema when I really should have. The next film I watched after that, and you'll see a recurring thing later on in the films that I'll talk about, is the original Final Destination, because it's a franchise that I've never seen, and it's one that I've wanted to tick off for quite some time. Plus, it might also be leading to a video I might be doing for Halloween this year where I talk about the franchise as a whole. But yeah, I wanted to finally tick it off because considering it's a very it's a franchise that kind of started a lot of trends in horror. No one really talks about it that much in conversation when you talk about general horror films. Everyone talks about Saw, everyone talks about Scream. Final Destination kind of gets sort of swept under the rug. So I wanted to kind of watch these films to see if there was a reason for that. And I can definitely say, watching this one and then a couple of the others that I'll talk about in a minute, I am really liking this franchise. In terms of, I mean, when it comes to Scream, I've only seen a couple of the films. When it comes to Saw, I've only seen the original. I've seen a couple of the Final Destination films now, and this is very close to being possibly my favorite horror franchise. But again, I might be biased because I'm fresh into it and I'm having a lot of fun with what it's doing. And that being said, there's a lot of other franchises that I've not delved into in the horror genre, but I'm really liking where this series is going. The first one I think is my favorite so far. I know these appear later in the month, but I'm just going to mention them now while we're talking about Final Destination. First one's probably my favorite. I've only seen 2 and the first 3 so far. I'd still need to see 4 and 5. 2 I liked quite a bit, and I think I like 2 and 3 about the same. I don't think I prefer one more than the other. I think they're right on the same level. I like 2 a lot, although I feel like it's where the series starts to go a little bit over the top. But one thing I really appreciate about 2, and I especially appreciate it with 3, is how brutal they are compared to the first one, because the first one is obviously testing out the concept, and I like how grounded it is despite being a bit over the top in a couple of points. The second and third one, there's a point in the second one where 3 people get topped off in like the space of a couple of minutes, and like it's literally rapid fire of like, okay, we've had a few deaths throughout the film that have been nicely spread out, and then 3 just happen in the space of like a couple of minutes, and it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, I've just recovered from this death, what the, and it's like a lot to take on board. And the third one, like,
third one kicked it up a lot. I've seen all of them, so I can go ahead and give my ranking of all of them. But I prefer 2 to 1. I probably go 2, 1, 5, 3, 4. I think 4 is the weakest in the franchise. 5 I actually quite like a lot. And you'll get to 5. You'll get to 5. 5 has become like a fan favorite over the years, and there's a 6th one coming out next year apparently.
That is also partially, outside of doing this video for Halloween, that is also part of the reason why I wanted to see it, because I then was reminded, I think a few weeks ago, that the 6th one's coming out next year, and I was like, oh, now's a good time to catch up on them, so I'm like fully up to date.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love how rapid the deaths get in two. The third one, I just love how brutal the deaths are. Full stop. I think there is. I'm still
Is
not.
there? Do you have a favorite death from the franchise so far?
I mean, I will say, I don't know about death, but I know Final Destination 3 now has one of my favorite edits of any film. Full stop, and it's the one from when the two girls die in the tanning beds to like it just cuts to the parallel shot of their coffins, and I'm like, what sick person came up with that idea? It's like so simple but so brilliant, and I love it. It's so brutal as well. I'm just like, you'd have to be one sick person to just think of that. But yeah, in terms of deaths, I'm trying to think. I think I think there is a death in the third one that I like just because of how sudden it is, and I think those are the ones that I think are the best deaths. Because
it's, I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. The one death that sticks with me from the first film is the "why don't you just drop dead" bus.
Yes,
that gets me every time, because it's not like with the later films where it's like this must happen for this to happen, and it's circumstance, and the breeze is blowing and shit like that. It is literally just she stepped in front of a bus. That's it. It's so simple. And the Tanning Bed one stuck with me when I first watched it. I'm trying to think of which. I think one of my favorite deaths might be in one of the later films, so I won't reveal it now, just so you're not. But yeah, it gets wacky, and then it gets a bit grounded again. When it comes to the fifth film, it's definitely more grounded than the fourth film. Fourth film goes too far, I think. But
that's generally what I've heard.
You'll get round to it. It's a good franchise. I don't like horror films, but I can watch them, and I probably will end up watching them before the next film comes out.
I think also because horror is a genre that has taken me quite a while to get into, because I was very hesitant because I don't like having the shit scared out of me. So it's a genre I've very slowly got into, and I think this is why I prefer this franchise to a lot of others that I've either heard of or seen, is that it knows how ridiculous it can be, and especially as I'm seeing with each of the films, it's just committing more and more to that, to the point where the third one is trying to like flip some of the ideas on that we've already established in 1 and 2 on their head, but at the same time just reverting back to what it knows well. I think the only thing that disappointed me with the third one is that the ending feels a bit lackluster and a bit abrupt. But apart from that, I just love how it's a bit like the Scream franchise. It feels like it's getting more meta with each film.
I was going to say those two horror franchises you can easily compare. Because they've got comedy elements, they've got the gore, they've got the mystery behind what's going to happen to each character, and they've both got systems. The Final Destination franchise, usually what order they die in is the order they die in, but then it gets flipped and it gets kind of figured out as the films go on. Whereas Screen has, the rules of horror films that you must follow to survive horror films. So I think both franchises can easily be compared. But I wouldn't say I was a fan of the Final Destination franchise, but I can absolutely watch them. Like they're okay films.
Yeah, I think going off of what I said earlier, again, I can't say I'm a fan just yet because I haven't finished the franchise, but I can definitely say it's winning me over very quickly. And that's probably the best way to kind of sum up my feelings towards it. Like, I've really enjoyed the first one just as a film, not just for the franchise. And then 2 and 3 have just cemented that, like, okay, I like what this series is doing, and I just want to see more of that. And yeah, I just love how absurd it can be at times. And I'm looking forward, even though 4 has kind of got the reputation that it has, I'm looking forward to seeing 4 and 5, just because of I'm looking forward to seeing how they carry that on. But look, I probably won't get to 4 and 5 until after London Film Festival's finished, because that's going to be a hectic couple of weeks next week. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how the how the franchise goes from there. So after delving into I kind of skipped ahead because I watched Final Destination 2 and 3 last in the month, but I thought I'd
Okay,
just
that's fine.
that.
Yeah.
What I watched after the first Final Destination was Trap. Finally watched that. Really liked it. There's a couple. I feel like it's a film that could have wrapped up a lot sooner than it actually did. Like, it keeps going, and it just keeps
She escapes.
going.
She comes back again. She escapes again.
Yeah, it got to the point where I was like, if you just restrained, if M. Night Shyamalan had just restrained it to just the simple concept and maybe gone for an extra 10 minutes.
Is it really bad that I thought the big twist, because there's always a big twist, the big twist was going to be the family was in on it? Like, I really thought for a minute the family would be in on it. And I know I'm always expecting an M. Night Shyamalan twist. I think the biggest twist of the film was the fact that there wasn't really a twist for once. And everyone's expecting, and then no, it just kind of continues on. But I don't know. I feel like the film would have played out very interestingly if suddenly she was trapped in the house, but the entire family was in on it. Like, the daughter knew that he was like the butcher and had people in the basement. Like, that would have been really interesting.
There was a point where I was starting to get the feeling of like, is the wife in on it? And it's the two kids that are oblivious. But then obviously that's not how it goes. And I feel like, going off what you just said, that might actually be the twist, is setting up false expectations. Like, we've already known the core twist from the trailer. So it's constantly setting up things that then become like, oh, is it going to do this? No, we're just going to stick to that. Are we going to try this? No, we're just going to stick to what we're doing. And I think it's that sense of false sense of security and a false sense of expectation that might be what he's going for. I appreciate it up to a point, and then it just kept going. And then I was like, this could have ended 20, 30 minutes ago. But I think there is a certain point where I did really like it, and the fact that it kept going kind of downgraded it a bit for me. I still like it. I don't think it's my favorite Shyamalan film, even compared to something like even compared to something like last year's Knock at the Cabin, which I really liked. Even compared to that, I feel like this one I can't say weak, but it's still like
it's not a downright bad film. And we're kind of going through the kind of M. Night Shyamalan-assance at the moment, because his films aren't that bad anymore. He went through a real stinker phase, but ever since, I'd say, The Visit was his first kind of comeback film that worked. And I'd say since then, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if he's actually done a outright terrible film.
I know a lot of people were really not a fan of Old. Like, I know a lot of people hate it.
I haven't seen Old, but I thought it was more of like 50-50. 50% liked it, 50% didn't like it. It was based on a book, and it pretty much adapted the book kind of thing. But let's have a look. Let's have a look through his filmography.
Yeah.
Of recent times. So if we're going off The Visit, you had Split, Glass. People didn't like Glass. Old, Knock at the Cabin, and then Trap. So it's like, I mean, I didn't see Glass. I still haven't seen. What was the other one I just mentioned? I still haven't seen Split. I know people rave about it. I know people rave about James McAvoy's performance. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'm looking at my M. Night Shyamalan ranking now on Letterboxd. Split I immediately loved the moment I saw it, and it's very securely in my top 3 Shyamalan films. Glass, I feel like, gets overhated. There are some really stupid elements to Glass, but I feel like it's well made. The ideas are there. The performances are all great. I like Glass for what it is. It's a weird one to try and defend, because for every good thing in it, there's like a couple of bad things. But I do think it gets overhated, and I think where Trap nicely sits in my ranking. Again, there's a couple of blind spots in his filmography that I need to tick off just to make it more extensive, but Trap is third from the bottom with The Happening at the bottom, because I despise that film, and then Glass is second to last purely because of if I've seen more of his films like After Earth and
Yeah.
The Last Airbender, they'd probably take up the back end
I've
of the
seen
list.
both of those films, and
Yeah.
dear God, they're films which you hear about.
Yeah.
They're as bad as
That's part of the reason why I've not watched them yet, because because of the reputation. But just for context, Glass is second to last, purely because I know that when I see those films, they'll probably be as bad as they are, and they'll probably fill up the back end. So Glass will actually be more near the middle, along with Trap and The Village. But yeah, I liked Trap, so that's why I'm trying to defend it, even though it's near the bottom of my overall ranking, because I need to see more of his films. But yeah, Trap is good. It's decent. I'd happily watch it again. That's another thing as well. And as much as I appreciate the craft of the Knock at the Cabin, and I prefer it a lot more than Trap, I feel like Trap has got more rewatchability to it as well, because of the simplistic concept that it has. But yeah, that's about all I can really say about Trap. I've really liked it. The next film I watched after that is the Netflix drama His Three Daughters, starring, I'm trying to remember one of the actresses' names. We've got Elizabeth Olsen, Carrie Coon, and Natasha Lyonne, playing three estranged sisters who all stay at their.
I watched this film as well this month.
Yeah, to begin with, it took a little while to get going for me, but then when it started to get into like the conflict of the three sisters, it really did win me over. And I think the writing mixed with the three central performances is really what makes this film work. I think it's also nicely shot as well, and it's nicely presented. But I do think if the writing and the performances didn't work as well as they do, I don't think this film would work nearly as well as it does. But it really won me over by the end of it.
It felt like a stage play.
Yes, that is the best way to describe it. Yeah,
it felt like a stage play, even though it's an original screenplay, it's original script. Like, it hasn't been adapted from anything. It felt like it had been adapted from something, but it wasn't. But you're right, the performances in the film make the film, and if they don't nail those performances and nail those characters, then the film does not work at all.
Yeah, that's the best way to sum it up, and that's one of my favorite little weird subgenres, is like the self-contained drama that is purely dialogue driven. 12 Angry Men is one of my favorite films of all time.
Oh yeah.
I think one of the best recent films to do that concept perfectly is Mass from 2021. Which I don't think His Three Daughters is as good as that. To be honest, it's going for something completely different, but Mass is probably in terms of the last like 5-6 years, it's one of the best examples of that little mini subgenre. And His Three Daughters is definitely a good one. It's not, again, because of the subject matter and because of how emotionally raw it can get in like the final act, I don't think there's much something like this doesn't have much rewatch value compared to like 12 Angry Men, where you're kind of trying to suss everyone out while the film's happening. So there's a lot of rewatch value in that. But yeah, I really liked His Three Daughters, and I think more people should be talking about it, because considering who's in it, I haven't seen many people talking about it as much as I thought they would.
It kind of came out quite low key. Like, I'd heard of it, and I think I'd seen the trailer, but when I went, like, I just randomly went onto Netflix one day and it was like, oh, this film's out. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So
yeah, I even think it only did like one major festival last year, and then
yeah,
kind of went under the radar, and then just dropped on Netflix, which I feel like is a bit of a missed opportunity. But if you're a fan of any of those three actresses, you're going to get like brilliant. You're going to get like not career best performances from them, but they're all really, really good in this film. And the last film I watched, technically not the last film, but the last one that I've not talked about yet, is Quartet. Because this was on TV, I think a day or two after Maggie Smith died, and I was like, I've not actually seen Quartet yet. And I like a lot of those very British, quirky British films that have her in it. Like Lady in the Van is brilliant. I love the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel films as well. I didn't love Quartet. I feel like it can be a bit lost in terms of what it's trying to say. But I appreciate what it was trying to do. Some of the humor is good. It's a very light and easy watch as well. And all the actors are really good in it, whether it's Tom Courtenay or Billy Connolly or Maggie Smith. I think it's just a light watch, and that's the best way to describe it. Also, I keep forgetting that Dustin Hoffman directed this. So when his name came up in the credits at the start, I was like, oh yeah, he did make this, didn't he? But it's good. It does feel... I think I didn't like it as much as the films I mentioned before, because like it can feel a bit jumbled in what it's trying to say. Like 1 minute it's trying to... There's one scene where it's trying to have a message about like you could be however old these characters are and being, have opera be your profession, but then there's also an appreciation for all types of music, and I appreciate what that scene's doing. But then it's trying to say something else in another scene, and I feel like if it was a bit more focused, then it would have been a bit stronger. But yeah, for what it is, it's fine. It's a good watch. It's a good light watch if you've got nothing else to watch on like a Sunday afternoon.
And I guess that's kind of a good segue, because we lost two great actors, in the last month, in the forms of Maggie Smith. And I haven't been able to watch a Maggie Smith film towards the end of my month, but I'm definitely going to start this month with Gosford Park, because I haven't seen it before, and I heard that her performance in that is fantastic. But I guess I'll
as well.
Yeah, and I mean, this year I'm going on a kind of murder mystery, watch as many murder mystery films as possible, or kind of things and stuff like that. I did watch a film for other late great. I watched Field of Dreams this month, as we lost James L. Jones. Iconic voice, but also iconic actor, and he makes one of the best speeches in sports film history. And it'd been a while since I've seen Field of Dreams, and it's one of those. I'm not an American. Like I love American sports, so I understand it, and I love my sports as well. So it's a film that sings to you, even if you don't like baseball. If you're a sports fan, and you can really get behind it. So it wasn't like it was kind of not really a kind of paying tribute to, but I definitely wanted to watch a film with him in this month, and I'm definitely around to watching a film with Maggie Smith in as well in the next month.
Yeah.
I'm going to rattle through a few films which I've also watched, which we've already talked about. So Trap, I like Trap. I'll give it a rewatch at some point. Interesting concept, and actually fairly well directed by M. Night Shyamalan. Beetlejuice. Loved going to the screening of that. My God, I had a fantastic time up in London with that one. Got some what's it called? We were given Maynard Bassett's with Beetlejuice. Yeah. Which is, it's always nice when they give you free things in those. It makes you write a better review. That's a joke, everyone, by the
way. Don't get me started. I'm gonna the two little key rings I got from the not key rings, the necklace I got from the Deadpool and Wolverine screening. I'm gonna cherish them forever, because like that's one of the first big press screenings I went to outside of Dune earlier in the year. So like. The fact that I got that on like the first one, I'm just the
Deadpool and Wolverine screening where you get like loads of different things, just given to you in general. Yeah, great film, loved it. It's not always the case when you go to a press screening. Sometimes they just give you popcorn and water just to keep you silent. But anyway, what else did I watch this month which is a repeat? No, that's it. Just those two films. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about some old releases which I'd seen for the first time. So I watched Brick for the first time, which Rian Johnson's first film. Really enjoyed it. Loved the film noir aspect. Do you know what? It's really weird. It just reminded me of Bugsy Malone, just a little bit more adult. Trying to solve a mystery kind of, but a little bit more adult, but that kind of old wise guy talk kind of thing, and all of that. But of course, teenager version going into it. I love the mystery. I did kind of figure it out, but at the same time, whatever. you know, it's a fun film to watch. I might not watch it again for a while because it's one of those you kind of watch, you ponder and go, huh, okay, and then you just move on.
The last time I watched Brick, I think I was still at secondary school because I loved Looper a lot back then.
Looper's great,
yeah, and I really wanted to like delve into Rian Johnson's back catalogue, but I think I watched it at too young of an age to appreciate the style of film it was trying to like riff off of. And it's a film that for the last decade I've been meaning to rewatch, but I've never had the chance to.
Now is your time. Your time is now.
Yeah, I will make sure to revisit it because I remember being. I think when I watched it, I think I was just more confused because I'm like, I don't quite get what it's doing or what it's trying to be. I liked it. I thought the style of direction and stuff was great, but I was just a bit like, what's going on here? So I think now, because like obviously I appreciate more styles of film, I think I'd have more of an appreciation for what it's trying to do. So I'm well overdue in a rewatch of that.
No, it was okay. Like yeah, whatever. We'll move on. I finally completed Psych. I did it. It took me like almost 2 months to do, but I've finally seen all 3 of the Psych movies. Psych, This Is Gus. Wasn't a fan. Like I think the movies themselves. I mean, I don't know if you've seen Psych at all as a TV show. It's one of those TV shows which has a phenomenal first series, and then the concept goes sour as it gets along. And I loved watching the series when I was younger because the characters are energetic, but it's sadly one of those series which I find really hard to binge because the concept of every episode is exactly the same. It's so hard to binge when the story is basically the guy's pretending to be a psychic detective, but actually he's just really observant. That joke gets very tired very quickly if you're watching like 2 or 3 episodes on the bounce. So I'm glad I gave it a bit of time to go into the movie, but you know, it's a fun show. It's got a massive fan base, and I'm glad that I finally finished it. I can say yes, I've done the whole of Psych, including the movies, but I wasn't a fan of the 3rd film, and you know, it's left me with a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. But that happens sometimes with shows like that, and TV show movies. You go that way all the time. I rewatched Lady Bird, just had it on the background whilst I was doing things because I've seen the film before. And of course, that film is still phenomenal. And it's so nice to see kind of, you know, you watch that film, then you go back and you watch Barbie and you see kind of Greta Gerwig's style and how it's changed. And, you know, I think it's a great film. I think it's really underrated. I don't think enough people talk about Lady Bird. I really do. I think it's a beautiful relationship they have, kind of a mother-daughter relationship. And yeah, it's just a wholesome, lovely film. And I love it. I rewatched Shutter Island. Just because.
Nice.
It's one of those throw in a film. Yeah, let's watch Shutter Island again. It's been a while since I've seen it, so I was like, yeah, why not? And then I did the Batman trilogy because we were watching a bunch of DC films. I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and watch the entire Batman trilogy. So Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises. Yeah. Great films. I forgot how long Dark Knight Rises was, but you don't feel the runtime. And the other 2 films I've watched so many times, I just wouldn't be able to, you know, tell you. I rewatched Corpse Bride. I think I actually started watching The Corpse Bride as like my first film I watched this month. Got halfway through it and then got all the way to something, and then had to go and watch it towards the end of the month. Gladiator, which I'm gonna say I've seen it on a TV. I watched it on my projector, and dear God, that was an experience. That was great. I love it. It's just I have my own little mini cinema in my room. It's why this wall behind me is completely blank. I of course note the Cinema Savvy pillow and go buy our merch, obviously. But you know, it's just such a lovely vibe having my projector here. I turn off all the lights, you know, I get myself snuggled up and everything like that, and I can go watch a film. And Gladiator was probably one of my favorite films to have watched on this projector, which is really nice, in my own little cinema. And then I followed up with another great film which I watched in my home little cinema, which was Watchmen, which was also such a lovely experience. It's the first time I've seen the full cut of Watchmen. I don't think I like the full cut of Watchmen. I think the director's is fine. You don't need the stuff about the Black Pearl or whatever they call it, the ghost ship. You don't need the 2 people in New Zealand becoming friends. The one thing I will say that you do need is Night Owl 1 and his death. That's okay staying in. That sequence is great with him having flashbacks to the good old times one last time.
Yeah.
But everything else is unnecessary, and it's just Snydering all over the place.
I'm well overdue a rewatch of Watchmen. Especially going off of like the last video that I was on for the DC Heroes one. The fact that we talked about Watchmen quite a lot just made me want to rewatch it again, because I'm like, God, that aspect's really good. God, that aspect's really good. God, I need to rewatch it.
I will say, you don't need to watch the full cut. The full cut's so long. It's such a long film.
Come to think of it, I think the only cut of the film I've seen is the standard theatrical cut. So I need to. I do have the director's cut on Blu-ray.
No. So the one cut I watched was it the? It's not called the extreme cut. It's something like that. It's like the overdrive cut.
The ultimate cut, I think it's
the
called.
Ultimate cut. It's got such a wanky name to it. It's just like I've watched the theatrical cut. I've watched the director's cut. I don't need to see the ultimate cut at the very, very end. Like it's just one of those things that just is unnecessary. Very quickly, we got a comment coming through. Sorry, I missed this ages ago. But Michael watched Quartet recently and thought it was underrated. I haven't seen Quartet. I need to watch. Maybe I'll go through Maggie Smith's catalog
it's
in a bit.
Compared to like, I will say, compared to like Lady in the Van, which like it just immediately clicked with me. Is Quartet is one of those films where like I can easily see those who like it, those who don't like it. So like I'm perfectly right in the middle with it. But yeah, it's a fun watch. It's fun for what it is.
And then Superman the movie. I'd seen the original cut of it before. I ended up accidentally watching the TV cut. The TV cut is 3 hours 40 long. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to stick on Superman the movie and I'm going to smash through it. And then suddenly I was like, I don't know why I didn't look at it. I threw it on my projector. I was like, oh yeah, great. And I was like, God, this film's really long, isn't it? And I was like, do you know what? I need to have a break. I need to go have a pee break. So I went to go pause. And I was like, what do you mean I'm 1 hour in to a 3.5 hour film? I was like, I did not prepare for this. This is not how I wanted this to go. I was like, oh yeah, this will be an easy like 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Great. And I was like, we're not even halfway yet. This is wrong. But I enjoyed it.
I didn't even know there was a 3 hour cut of the film.
There's a 3 hour 40, 3.5 hour cut of it. And I was just like, oh my God. It's the made for TV cut. So I think they must have segmented it with ad breaks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what they add in extra. I just watched it and was like, sure, I'm watching Superman the movie. And then I was like, yes, I'm watching 3.5 hours of Superman the movie. But yeah, that's an experience. It's done. I've done it now. That's fine. Let's talk about outside of the films we talked about, some other films that I've watched this month. I've got kind of from the new films this month. Let's talk about new films this year. Watch this month. Trap. We've talked about Beetlejuice. We talked about. I'm going to talk about the only other film that is a repeat this month, which I actually quite liked, which is Abigail, which was made by the people who made Ready or Not.
Yeah,
I loved Ready or Not. Ready or Not's great. It knows what it's doing as a horror film. It has a great kind of final girl in the film. It's great. Abigail is batshit insane. I love it.
I love it.
It's so good.
It's so good. It's so good. I love it so much.
I mean, I kind of expect it, knowing what the directors have done previously, but the fact that they managed to get that good of cast and then throw them into like, oh, it's a vampire stuck in a house trapped horror film. This is great. We're going to see some head ripping, and we did. Yeah. We absolutely did. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to what Matt Bertolini, or whatever his name is, Matt Bertolini is going to do, because fantastic first two movies, right?
Yeah, I sometimes when I cobble together my best of the year list as the year's going, there's a lot of films on there that I appreciate that are on that list because of the craft, and I appreciate the filmmaking. There's other films where I'm like, I resonated with it or I enjoyed it, and then occasionally there'll be a couple of films that I don't care, I just had so much fun with it. And this year I feel like Abigail is that one film for me. couldn't stop enjoying myself as the film was going on, and the fact that it just gets more batshit insane the more the film goes on into like its third act. I was just loving it more and more, and the fact that it just kept committing to what it was doing.
It doubles down, then it triples down on it. It's like, we got the concept, we're gonna go for it. No, really, we're gonna go for it kind of vibes. It's just
it's also one of those films, especially considering it came out this year. I don't think I've had any other film this year quite as that's been quite as impactful as Abigail, in the sense that, like, as soon as I watched it, I immediately wanted to rewatch it again. And ever since I watched it, I just kind of every now and then will be like, I really want to stick Abigail on, but then I go to watch something else because there's other stuff to watch. But it is one of those films where I just constantly have that craving, like, I just really want to watch it again because I just had such a blast with it.
Exactly. So that was a fun one from this month. I'm going to talk about one final film before we go into the two absolute steaming piles of shits. I forgot one. On your recommendation, I watched Constantine.
Yes,
for the first time.
I'm so bad. I'm so annoyed that Neil isn't here to just witness this. I love it.
I know. I really enjoyed it. It was great. I understand that he should have a Scouse accent, but it's fine for what it is. It's absolutely fine. And Keanu, he's great in it. All the characters actually I really enjoyed. I especially loved the depiction of Lucifer in this film. Just the slimy float down to the surface. I love that kind of creepy sweatiness that he's got about him. No, I enjoyed it. It's a fun film. I'll probably watch it again at some point. Like, I'll be like, let's throw on Constantine. It'll be one of those films, just like you're like, let's throw on Abigail. I'm guessing it had that vibe with you the first time you watched it. Like, this film's cool. We'll watch it every now and then.
Constantine's a weird one for me because it's a little bit like V for Vendetta in the sense that, like, I watched bits of it at way too young of an age, but seeing certain bits of it at that age, I was like, what is this film? I need to watch it. And then later on into my teens, that was when I first watched those films for the first time. Actually, I might have actually watched V for Vendetta when I was a kid, and I was like, that's a mistake. That's a mistake. But I watched Constantine not until my teens, and I was just like, because at the time it hadn't got the reappraisal it had, and people still were like either on the fence or just weren't a massive fan of it. And I'm like, I honestly don't get where people are coming from. It commits to a specific style and just really doubles down on it. And I didn't know anything about the comics either at the time. I was just loving it for what it was. And now, obviously, the older I've got, I now know that that's not what the character's supposed to be. Like I said in the DC Heroes video, I kind of don't care that it doesn't do exactly what the comic does. It's its own thing. And if you view it in the same way of, like, the Batman films have done a slightly different interpretation of the character with each film, that's the best way I can say going into this Constantine film. If you're a fan of the comic version, just view the film as like, yes, but this is the film's take on it. This is their take. If you view it in that sense, you'll absolutely love it. And I just love how dark, gritty, and lived in the whole thing feels. I just love. I could spend another hour just talking about Constantine.
Here's the thing: if you go and follow Aaron on his channel, Aaron at the Movies, I guarantee you, within the next 2 months, there's going to be like 20 Constantine videos.
I had a series on my channel that I haven't brought back from the dead, but I keep wanting to, which was called Under the Radar, where I took like an underrated or overlooked film and just not dissected it, but like kind of gave it the appraisal it needs so that more people would see it. And one film that was always at the top of the list was Constantine, and I still want to do an episode on Constantine, but I've not touched that series in like 2 or 3 years. So even if I bring it back just for Constantine,
absolutely.
I'm so tempted to.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the two bad films. Let's talk about just 2 straight up bad films from this year.
God, here we go.
Borderlands is a bad film. And this is as a person who's played the Borderlands games. It doesn't understand the world. It doesn't understand the characters. it doesn't really understand the actors that it's working with either.
Mm.
Nothing works. The dialogue's clunky. There's no comedy in it. It's not quite there. Would I watch it again? No. Would I watch it again if I was offered, to watch it or watch Megalopolis? Yes. 100% yes.
If you were held at gunpoint to choose between the
Borderlands is a 5-star letterbox review compared to Megalopolis. Dear God, I wish you could give 0 stars for a film review on Letterboxd, because this is like one of the first films that would deserve that 0 star. Now, people have gone on to our review, and one of the first things that I want to point out is people were arguing with George in the comments about the fact that we mentioned that Francis Ford Coppola was, sexually, touching people up in on set.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, you shouldn't be talking about that. That's where it becomes court of public opinion, blah, 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 blah. We're a film channel. We talk about films. We're going to talk about the production. We do that on every video that we do. We're going to talk about, if the director made a comment about things. When Rust finally comes out, if we review it, we're going to talk about the incident. It's just like, if you've never seen our channel before, we really go in depth about absolutely everything. So the fact we've got someone arguing in the comments about, oh, you shouldn't be talking about Francis Ford Coppola and his Francis Ford copping up of people. Of course we're going to talk about it. Why wouldn't we talk about it? It directly affects the marketing for the film, because some people will see those headlines and go, I don't want to watch that film. And there was multiple issues with the marketing for that film, not only with the director going and being sexually inappropriate towards extras who need to be protected in film and TV. And I've worked on sets before, and we've had situations where they haven't had intimacy coordinators for people involved, and that has been a complete disaster. That opens you up to so many lawsuits. And for a film like that, where the director, one of the most powerful people on set, is being inappropriate, you've got to talk about it. You've got to make people aware of it. And of course, it won't affect the review of the film. The review of the film is, it's a bad film. It's one of the worst films I've ever seen. It is the worst film I've ever seen in cinema. And that is a statement right there. But we can separate the art from the artist. But if the art is bad and the artist is also bad, you've got to make a comment on both.
Yeah.
But going into the film, dear God, the acting is bad. It gets the worst out of the actors. The dialogue is bad. The cinematography at some points is truly awful. It nails everything at being horrible. It's a film which needs to be watched as a challenge. It's like, sit through this film and you get a gold star kind of thing. It's that awful and bad. And I think the reviews that people have been giving it, people saying, oh, it's as wacky and as wild as you think it would be. No, this film is shit. Call it what it is. This film is bad. You can't go, oh, well, I can see the creative vision that he was going for and go all nuanced like that. No, this film is really bad. It's really bad. And I can't believe that people are giving it oh, but it's Coppola. That was his marketing campaign. It was like, I made Apocalypse Now. People called it bad. No one called it bad. Everyone called it great. I made The Godfather. Some people at the time call it bad. No, everyone loved The Godfather. You're just setting yourself up here because people are going to call this film the worst film ever, blah, blah, blah. Only for people down the line to say, no, it's a defense mechanism. It's terrible. It's bad marketing. It's bad from the studio. It's bad from him. Yeah. And honestly, this film is going to win so many Razzies. I thought Madame Web would win it all. This film's going to win everything. This is going to, they may even just go do you know what? Even for categories where it couldn't be nominated in, it's going to sweep the board and it will be remembered for that. Truly awful film. You need to watch it.
I don't. I really don't. The thing is, the more I'm thinking about it as you're saying it, you know how there's been a trend recently of films that were originally considered not very good that have kind of got a reappraisal in recent years. If this gets a reappraisal in
it won't
3 or 4 years, I don't know. There will probably be some people out there that will go, It's an misunderstood masterpiece.
If it ends up in the Prince Charles Theatre and they're doing like room-styled screenings, I swear to God.
I mean, I didn't really have much. I'm going to be brutally honest. Like outside of The Godfather and Apocalypse Now, like Francis Ford Coppola's never really been a director that's like won me over. I need to see more of his stuff, but like when the only great film I've seen of his is The Godfather, you know, but it didn't really win me over when it was announced. I then heard all the news about it. I was like, you're really not doing it for me. And then I saw the trailer and then the reviews coming out. And then since the week it's been out, certain scenes have gone viral for how bad the dialogue is. And my God, the delivery of that one line.
It's the bow and arrow boner that gets me every time. You know,
it's just like the amount of times I've seen the clip of Adam Driver going, "Just go back to the club." I'm like, who? Yeah. Oh, I don't.
How did he sign on board? How did any of these people sign on board other than they just went, "Oh, Francis Ford Coppola's making movies again. He wants you to be in his film," and they just went, "Oh my God, I get to work with one of the greatest directors of all time. He made The Godfather." But I really do hope, and you know, we'll talk about people's careers here, because he's such a shitty person as well. I really do hope that people go, this is the man who made The Godfather and Megalopolis, and that be his kind of, he didn't have to make this film. He didn't have to make this film. No one would have gone, oh, you know, people would just gone, oh, what was Francis Ford Coppola's last film? Oh, his last film was, oh, no one knows what it was. It was forgotten. People are now going to go, he made one of, if not the greatest film of all time. A lot of people put it in their lists. Even Apocalypse Now makes most top 10s for greatest films of all time whenever they're released. Yeah. But he also made Megalopolis. And that will be his legacy. And that's so damning. That is so damning. How can you go from making something so good to making something so bad and having this many problems with it across the board?
I think also as well, just kind of going off the whole thing of like what you said at the start of this bit, where it was like people trying to separate the controversy compared to the actual film itself. It's kind of baked into this film's DNA, not just from the groping stuff, but also he's specifically chosen a few actors that are like not very well seen in the public eye or have been cancelled, like Shia LaBeouf or Jon Voight are like controversial actors that haven't been in much recently because of who they are, but yet he's shoved them in like central roles in this film as if it's like trying to prove a point as well. And I don't really see the reason for it.
It's like, I saw a really funny meme about it. It's like, well, he definitely cooked something here. It's just poisonous and everyone's dead now. Like,
I love that. I love that.
It's baffling how, of all the films to come out this year, Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola's, starring Adam Driver, Aubrey Plaza, you know, Natalie Emmanuel, all of these big names, good, decent actors, and yet Shia LaBeouf and Aubrey Plaza have probably the best acting range in this film. They've made one of the worst films of all time. I just can't believe it. But I will not parrot on more about it. Do you know what? I'm going to talk about Megalopolis whenever we do like an end of year kind of like, oh, what was the year like kind of thing, or maybe in December when we do like a what was your top 5, what was your bottom 5? Oh, this is going to be below the bottom 5. This is even worse. This is going on my worst of all time list. No, it's absolutely fascinating how a film like that can be made. But you know, those were the films I watched this month. I watched a fair amount of films, and that was it. I want to know if anyone else. Yeah, Michael. Yeah, exactly. Megalopolis looked good from the trailer. Trust me, mate. Go and watch it. Tell me what you think. In fact, go and watch any of the films we talked about today. And of course, you know, we want to create a discussion. So, you know, tell us what you've watched below in the comments. Can we find a single fan out there of Megalopolis? That'd be great. Or a single fan of Borderlands even as a movie. If not, can we get some love in the chat for Constantine? just to make Aaron's day.
Keep it positive. Keep it off the Megalopolis Borderlands thing. Just keep it positive.
Tell us more about how everyone loved Abigail, and tell us more about how everyone loves Constantine. Exactly. And yeah, thank you ever so much for everyone for coming on for this one. Please go and follow us on all of our social medias. The link tree in the description that take you to our Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Letterboxd. Go onto a Redbubble store where you can pick up a pillow or a jumper, which I'm wearing today, which is keeping me nice and warm in my room. And do all of those things. Keep an eye out for various different videos. I know for a fact that we're going to be going, I don't know if we're going live for it or if we're going to record it tomorrow, but we're going to be doing a Rings of Power review. We've watched Rings of Power this month, which I actually quite enjoyed. I really enjoyed Rings of Power. It's a step up from season 1, so it may be time to get into it. Have you seen Rings of Power at all? Or
no, it's one of those things that I desperately need to get onto, but because season 1 and 2 have kind of already come and gone, I might as well just do
season one. Season 1 was okay. Season 2 was, I'd say, good as far as ratings are concerned. It's not quite to the wow, excellent, like kind of mind blowing. Yeah. There's one episode, episode 7, and actually the finale as well, which had some great scenes, some really kind of chew the scenery out kind of scenes, which kind of, you're looking at kind of not top end Game of Thrones, you're looking definitely at good level Game of Thrones kind of like action scenes and various different things. But yeah,
I've been seeing a few reactions to like this recent season, obviously trying my best to avoid spoilers, and I specifically heard that like the last 2 episodes in particular were like top tier.
The first 6 episodes are set up for the final 2, and the final 2 just go like kind of guns blazing, kind of,
I've got to be honest, I'm kind of slacking on most TV shows, just because I'm bad at watching TV compared to films. But also, I think recently I got Apple TV Plus, so I'm like trying to catch up on shows on that as well. Because I was going to mention it quickly. The only TV show I've watched this month is Ted Lasso season 2, and I loved it.
Oh, you're finally going through Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is great.
I love the first season. I think the second season is a lot better, and I quite like. This is something that a lot of people didn't like about season 2, but I like it. It's the fact that it kind of focuses a little bit on other characters and kind of gives them a time to shine. And I'm looking forward to watching season 3. Like I said earlier, probably won't get to it until after London Film Festival, but I'm looking forward to watching it.
You will very much enjoy. I really enjoyed Ted Lasso season 2 and season 3 on top of that. So anyway, is there anything happening on your channel at the moment, Aaron? Advertise yourself. Aaron at the movies.
Well, the main big thing, and this probably won't be out for a couple of weeks, is I'll be doing my usual big single video roundup of the London Film Festival. I've already seen a couple of films through online press screeners that they provide. I've seen about 4 so far, and then I will be up there from the first day of the festival on the 9th through to the 14th, and I will be seeing as many films as I physically can before I burn out. And yeah, last year I saw 16. I think this year I should be seeing about 18 or 19, so it's kind of gradually going up with each year. And yeah, that will be out not next week, the week after, but it'll be out some point soon. Just one big video rounding up everything that I saw, and then everything after that. I guess the next thing after that will probably be a Final Destination video for Halloween, maybe with a smaller video in the middle. That's all I can do.
It's a Constantine video. Either that or whatever Doctor Who video we planned way back when with the various different things we've discussed over this year with Doctor Who.
I will start.
Is it the Stephen Moffat why does he love World War II so much kind of episode, or is it? Yeah.
There's that, but I also want to start a petition for like a Doctor Who Mount Rushmore, because I think there's a lot of potential with that.
Oh, 100%.
Like either whether it's Doctors or like Christmas specials or just one-off episodes.
Episodes would be a great Mount Rushmore. Characters, I mean, you have the Doctor, and maybe even the Doctor involved.
You could have a Companions one, actually. Like a Companions one would be a bit more...
Yeah.
Would be a bit more like diverse.
These are all suggestions which 100% I'm going to take to George for season 2 when we get round to it. And we've already got we've got the schedule already done for season 1, so we've already got it completely packed out. But you know, when Doctor Who comes back around next year, we're absolutely going to get a couple of Doctor Who Mount Rushmores going, and they're going to be great. Anyway, thank you ever so much for watching, everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you.